Hello guys, today we are continuing with the second part of the introduction to information security. Security controls. What does it mean by security controls? Security controls are the countermeasures to avoid, detect or minimize security risks to physical property, information, computer systems or other assets. In the context of information security, such controls protect the confidentiality, integrity and availability of information. It can be categorized into three main types as technical, physical and administrative, with the main functionality to detect, prevent, correct, compensatory or act as a deterrent. Now let's discuss each one in detail. As the name implies that physical security controls are the physical countermeasures or implementation used to deter or prevent unauthorized access to sensitive material. These implementation could include but are not limited to CCTV cameras, motion or thermal alert systems, security guards, door locks, work area separation and much more. Technical controls are based on technological measures such as encryption. It can be encryption data or messages, smart cards for restricting and regulate the login access to certain premises, network authentication to control access to the internet network of the organization, and access control list, which we will discuss on the upcoming session in detail. So these measures are used to control the access and usage of sensitive data both over physical structure and over network of the company. Administrative controls. These type of controls are focused on the human factors of security. It involves all level of entities with the organization and determine which user have access to what resources or information by what means. And it includes the training and awareness of staff on advanced and basic security precautions need to follow. For instance, awareness of phishing attacks, and then disaster management and recovery plans to mitigate the loss, both physical loss and data loss. Personal recruitment and separation strategies which describe the policy of the company on how we should recruit employee. Requirement of background checks other than the qualification checks. And what level of access to the company's assets should given to that person. And after the resignation of an employee, what the company need to do, such as removing the access given to the company's assets. And also we can categorize the security controls based on their functionality: preventive, detective, deterrent, corrective, recovery and compensating controls. Preventive controls. These type of controls are designed to discourage errors or irregularities from occurring before actually happening. So these are proactive controls. This includes separation of duties, security of assets, planning and testing security measures, and proper employee hiring and termination practices. Detective controls are reactive type controls because it is designed to find errors or irregularities after they have occurred, including monitoring systems, system and database log review, file integrity checkers to check whether file, data, information has been changed after the incident, and performance evaluations. Deterrent controls are also the type of proactive measures. It is intended to discourage potential attackers and warn them that it is better not to attack. But even if you decide to attack, we can defend ourselves. The best example for this is the notice of monitoring, such as this premises is monitoring using CCTV for 24/7. Again, corrective controls are the type of reactive measures. It is designed to correct the situation after a security violation has occurred. In here, even though a violation occurred, not all is lost or disrupted. So it makes sense to try and fix the situation into normal and running. For instance, the procedure to clean a virus from an infected system, a security guard checking and locking a door after left unlocked by a careless employee, or updating firewall rules to block an attacking IP address. Recovery controls are somewhat similar to corrective controls, but they are applied in more serious situations to recover from security violations and restore information and information processing resources. Some of these controls are backup systems and data, disaster recovery mechanism, and emergency key management arrangement. Compensating controls are referred to as backup or alternative arrangement for other controls when the original controls have failed or cannot be used further. When the second set of controls address the same threat that are addressed by another set of controls, the second set of controls are referred to as compensating controls. Risk management. First of all, let's be clear on what is a risk. Risk is the possibility of damage happening and the ramification of such damage should it occur. In the event of risk management in life, we all manage risks intentionally or unintentionally throughout our lifetime. But in this context, we are focusing on especially IRM. In other words, information risk management, which is the process of identifying and assessing risk, reducing it to an acceptable level, and implementing the right mechanism to maintain that level. It should be noted that risk can be mitigated but cannot be eliminated, and that is the nature of the risk in a commercial environment. And when successfully manage the risk, that risk is converted into a profit. When we considering risk management, these are the terms that we use to describe. As we discussed in the first part of this lesson last week, vulnerability is a weakness or bug of a system, network or device. A threat is a potential danger posed by a vulnerability, while a threat agent is an entity that identifies a vulnerability and uses it to attack the victim system. Risk is the possibility of a threat agent or attacker take advantages of a bug and the corresponding business impact. An exposure is the potential to experience losses from a threat agent. And finally, a countermeasure is a necessary precautions put into place to mitigate the potential risk. Now let's try to understand how the risk is affecting a system by supporting this diagram. We start the story with the threat agent. A threat agent gives rise to a threat that exploits a vulnerability and can lead to a security risk that can damage your assets and cause exposure. This can be countermeasured by a safeguard that directly affects the threat agent. This is how a potential risk can be managed. We can either avoid risks by eliminating the assets exposure to risk or eliminating the assets altogether, or else mitigate risk by changing the assets risk exposure by applying the safeguard, or else accept risk by acknowledging that the risk exists but apply no safeguards, or else transfer risk by shift responsibility for the risk to a third party. Data loss occurs when the data of a particular organization is intentionally or unintentionally lost, stolen, or leaked to the outside world. Because nowadays data or information is the most valuable asset of an organization. There are different varieties of data, including R&D, sales, finance, human resource, legal, employee, customer, contractor data, and etc. A data loss can lead to brand name damage, loss of reputation of the organization concerned, loss of competitive advantage of a business product, loss of customers, loss of revenue, legal action resulting in fines and civil penalties, and significant cost and effort to notify affected parties and recover from the data breach. These are some of most common ways that would lead to data loss. It can lose the data via encrypted devices, cloud storage devices, removable media, hard copy, improper access control policies, email, or via social networking. BYOD, or in other words, bring your own device, is an emerging trend of employees using their personal devices, such as laptop, smartphones, tablets, etc., to remote access any organizational network to carry out office work while traveling or stay at home, which is the most popular method during these pandemic days. Employees can thus access the corporate services supplied by the company, and it's sometimes the most efficient way to have the manpower to the company, and as well as employees would prepare to deliver the best of them while staying at a most comfortable pace. As with most technological factors, BYOD has its own benefits as well as drawbacks. Let's discuss some of these now. It definitely boosts productivity, as employees can always work by accessing work using their personal devices while on vacation, at home, even on traveling. Employees could work with devices that they are more comfortable with, and it also boosts productivity. The cost to buy new hardware, software, and firmware can be utilized for other things, since employees use their own devices for company purposes as well. On the other hand, by considering the security of the company's data, there is a high possibility to arise security threats due to increased number of people who would be accessing a company's data using other devices. And since malware could get into any BYOD device that is not properly secure, company files and data which are free to be accessed by employees using their personal devices could also end up in the wrong hands. Such data can be easily seen or stolen by outsiders with malicious intentions. Moreover, BYOD devices might also get stolen, or they may get lost, which would also cause data breaches. The IT department in companies where BYOD is practiced would have to undergo tremendous pressure support managing and securing all BYOD devices. The company does not have any legal power against BYOD, as those devices are owned by the employees, not the property of the company. Even if a data breach situation occurs, the company has no control over the BYOD device, such as wipe out the devices legally or ethically. On the other hand, COPE, in other words, corporate owned, personally enabled, is a business model in which an organization provides its employees with mobile computing devices and allow the employees to use them as if they were personally owned notebook computers, tablets, or smartphones. The COPE model provides the organization with great power to protect the organization data both technically and legally. Corporate-owned devices policies provide several benefits, such as the ability to active manage and control if and when a device can access particular apps, sites, services, networks, and solutions. The opportunity to wipe a device of any corporate data when an employee loses his or her devices or parts way with the organization, and the chance to incorporate controls on the device that determine how application, networks, and IT system can be utilized remotely, and whether specific information can be retrieved in certain scenarios. An organization might consider adopting one or more security measures below mentioned to protect COPE or BYOD devices. They could use data encryption mechanism to establish secure communication between COPE BYOD and the company's internal network. They can use strong authentication mechanisms such as PIN, multi-factor authentication, most commonly two-factor authentication. Also use a proper way to remote data wipe or remote locating of stolen or misplaced devices. Moreover, the company can use jailbreak or root detection mechanism for their devices, since it can cause serious security breaches. They also could run security assessment from time to time on those devices, and most importantly, frequently check out the security awareness of staff on the devices that they are using every day. We commonly use the word hacker to describe a network attacker who gains unauthorized access to a system of an organization to cause physical or logical damage. However, it is not the only case. It can be a clever programmer capable of developing new programs and coding changes to existing programs to make them more efficient, or a network professional that uses sophisticated programming skills to ensure that networks are not vulnerable to attack, or a person who tries to gain unauthorized access to devices on the internet, or individual who run programs to prevent or slow network access to a large number of users, or corrupt or wiped out data on servers. By the intention and behavior of the hacker, we can identify three types of hackers: white hat hackers, grey hat hackers, and black hat hackers. White hat hackers, aka ethical hackers, who uses their hacking skills for good, ethical, and legal purposes only. They may perform security assessments such as vulnerability assessment, penetration tests to discover the vulnerabilities. Then these security vulnerabilities are reported to developer for them to fix before the vulnerabilities can be exploited. Moreover, some organizations award prizes or bounties to white hat hackers when they report vulnerabilities to the company without damaging their system. On the other hand, black hat hackers are unethical criminals who violate computer and network security for personal gain or malicious reasons. They exploit vulnerabilities to compromise computer and network systems without authorization and cause damage to them. Grey hat hackers are the individuals who committed crimes and do unethical actions, but not for their own personal gain or cause serious damage. For instance, someone who compromises a system without permission and then discloses the vulnerabilities publicly. However, by publishing a vulnerability, the grey hat hacker may allow other hackers to exploit it, even though they did not do so. Based on the method a hacker carried out his or her attack, we can assign them some sort of titles as script kiddies, vulnerability brokers, cyber criminals, hacktivists, and state sponsors hackers. As the name implies that script kiddies are inexperienced hackers running existing scripts, tools, and exploit developed by skillful hackers to cause harm, but typically not for profit. However, the term does not imply any age level. It is generally assumed that most script kiddies are minors who lack the ability to write sophisticated programs or exploit on their own. Their objective is to try impress their friends or gain credit in computer communities. Vulnerability brokers generally refers as white hat hackers who attempt to discover exploits and report them to vendors, sometimes for prize or rewards. As the name implies that cyber criminals are black hat hackers with the motive to make money using any means necessary. They could be self-employed, working independently, or working for criminal organizations. It is estimated that globally, cybercriminals steal billions of dollars from consumers and businesses. Cybercriminals operate in an underground economy where they buy, sell, and trade attack toolkits, zero-day exploit code, botnet services, banking trojans, keyloggers, and much more. Most commonly on the dark web, which is a small portion of the deep web. They also buy and sell the private information and intellectual property they steal from the victims. Cybercriminals target small businesses and consumers, as well as large enterprise and industry verticals. Hacktivists are the grey hat hackers who rally and protest against different social and political ideas. Hacktivists do not hack for profit, they hack for attention. Activists publicly protest against organizations or government by posting articles or videos, leaking sensitive information, and performing distributed denial of service attacks. Great examples are the anonymous hackers and the Syrian Electronic Army. And final type is state-sponsored hackers, which is heavily funded and guided by governments. State-sponsored hackers create advanced and customized attack codes, often using previously undiscovered software and vulnerabilities, steal government secrets, gather intelligence and sabotage network and systems to benefit the government that they have been funded. Their target are foreign governments, terrorist groups, and corporations. Most countries in the world participate to some degree in state-sponsored hacking. Nations hire the best talent to create and most advanced and steal traits. One of the latest one is the Stuxnet malware that was created to damage Iran's nuclear enrichment capabilities back in 2010. If you don't know the story of Stuxnet, then you should definitely check out the interesting story behind it. There are plethora of video on YouTube regarding this topic. Now with that we conclude today's session. Thank you for watching till the end. Next Monday we commence with a new lessons on cryptography. See you there. Have a safe and great week.